technical difficulties.
Yes, definitely. Little mishap there, but thanks for staying for the coolest presentation of the day. I mean, I know that was really fancy, but the meat happens here, so glad that you're here. As Kenji mentioned, our goal here is for you to make meaningful connections. So if you haven't met your neighbor, go ahead and introduce yourself. Some of you are sitting together, like I always sit with my team. I'm going to ask you to branch out this evening, meet other people. It's here for you to broaden that network a little bit. One of the things I'm super excited about for this conference is that we have 2 amazing women keynote speakers. Super excited to have both Anu and Twyla here. Patti and I were originally supposed to do this session in the community center next to the keg, and we thought we might title it Drink While You Think with Women.
Yeah.
Maybe next time. We got moved to the stage instead, so.
It's all good. It'll be fun no matter where we are.
Definitely. So quick show of hands. Who has been at Acuity less than 12 months? Yeah, take a look around. Who's been at Acuity less than...
Keep your hands up.
Keep your hands up. Who's been at Acuity less than 2 years? Yeah. That's why we have this presentation today, right? We have a lot of new faces. We've been working on a lot of new things. Much that we have been working on has been a rebuild back from the start, rethinking about how we do process, the questions that we're asking, and why we're asking those questions. So I want to start us off with a quote. Has anybody heard of Adam Grant? Raise your hand. Yeah, I love Adam Grant. So for those of you who don't know who Adam Grant is, he is a renowned organizational psychologist. He's written books, he's on TED Talks, all that kind of thing. But he's one of my favorite people to follow on Twitter and LinkedIn. So if you don't follow him or if you have that, definitely look him up. But back in June, this little tidbit landed in my Twitter feed and it just stuck. Progress rarely happens in a straight line. It typically unfolds in loops. Day by day, it can feel like you're spinning your wheels. But if you look back on your trajectory over months and even years, you can see forward movement. Major growth is the result of many seemingly minor turns. And he had this visual with it, which I think sticks to where we are and where we have been. So we've launched many new processes over the past 12 months, both because of customer growth and team growth. And at times it can definitely feel like we're moving in circles. But we've gone back to the beginning, we've rebuilt, and we've made some tremendous progress on our infrastructure to better support our growth. Some of the processes we have launched have been one-time or use case processes, and others are recurring processes to be used on a regular cadence by the same team members. But all were designed with 2 things in mind: to increase efficiency, maximize the data that we've already collected and repurpose it and reframe it to be used in other processes, and to definitely increase and improve communication and collaboration across our teams. Dr. Wayne Dyer, anybody heard of him? There you go. So some of his fans call him the father of motivation. I had not heard of him before, but I am a big fan of a one-liner. And so he came back with this: change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change. And I think that's exactly what we have done with many of our processes that we've worked on this year. So I'm going to hand it over to Patti and let her talk a little bit about what we did, what we have going on.
Okay, so this is not going to be scary. I know Kenji was like, we're going to talk about all the details. We're not talking about details. I am giving you big picture context. I'm hopefully helping you understand what we're doing and why we're doing it, and so that the things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis makes more sense. I may ask a question here or there if I remember to. And at the end, we're going to have questions. And I would like to know, first of all, who likes my T-shirt? I am so happy to hear you say that, because we have prizes. We have T-shirts. If you look at my Vanna back there, Scott, we've got T-shirts. So if you're asking questions, if you're answering questions,
there's prizes to be had.
There are prizes to be had. You can take one of these lovely shirts home. Okay. All right, so I want to start at the beginning. I've been here about a year. For those of you who don't know, I think pretty much everybody knows. Been here about a year, and when we started talking about what needed to change to make Acuity easier to use, I'm like, let's start at the beginning. Let's have a single source of truth. Anybody, I don't care if you've been here for the last 10 years or you've been like here for 10 minutes. You've probably been somewhere where there are lots of different spreadsheets with the same information over and over, or, hey, what clients do we have? Well, do you want the list from QBO, or do you want the list from this spreadsheet, or do you want, oh, who do I ask? Well, you could ask this person or that person or the other. No, we have one single source of truth. Everything that we built, even if it looks like it's in multiple places, it lives in Salesforce now, okay? And it has all this time. It's just, it hasn't been updated consistently, perhaps, or whatever. Or we weren't capturing the information that maybe we needed to. So we worked really hard to identify what's the information that we need, and it's going to live here, okay? So you probably cannot read that. It's super teeny tiny. But it's things like, what is the status of the client? Are they in onboarding? Are they a recurring clients? Or are they in retention? Are they on Xero or QBO? Where is their Google client folder? Where is their client checklist? Where is their month-end close? All this information, we're capturing it now in Salesforce, okay? First question, who knows, even if this is all, let's assume it's all fully populated and accurate and everything's good. Who knows the problem with Salesforce at Acuity? Melissa, your hand was up first. I have to take you. Not everybody has access to it. T-shirt for Melissa. No, you're not going to ask them that across the room.
That's bad.
You're going to walk over there and deliver a T-shirt.
And we have plenty to exchange sizes.
Your ever-loving mind?
What? No.
Okay. Not everybody has access. We have 10 to 15% of our team has access to Salesforce. So what good does it do if we have all this great information that nobody has access to? Okay? That is where Process Street comes in. Okay, so I said that we have a single source of truth that's in Salesforce. That's true. There are like, I didn't count them, 75-ish fields in Salesforce for clients and or teammates. We also have a bunch of other fields that we're keeping track of. So think of your client notebooks that you're keeping track of all this data. We use Airtable kind of like as an add-on so that we have a single source of truth in Salesforce and or Airtable. You don't need to know the details of that. That's just where all the information lives. You don't need to get into it. That's just it. But we've built Process Street kind of around that so that we've got now client notebooks, month-end closed accounting deliverables, year-end checklist, the 1099 filing service workflow. That was like a year ago, so you'll remember that soon. I'm doing a little bit of a rebuild right now. And if you see the little electricity things, the lightning bolts on all of those, it's because the information is being pulled from Salesforce and Airtable into all those different areas. So we are using the same information everywhere. We're not creating a bunch of standalone things where you have to update everything individually, okay? So I wanted to do this one because I think it's still kind of unclear to people. This is an example of the client notebooks. Again, it's all coming from Salesforce or Airtable. Every workflow that I have has this kind of methodology. The information comes in at the top and goes out at the bottom. So for like the client notebooks, in this case, you click that little lightning bolt at the top, you're pulling in the information. So almost always, I'm going to be asking for Acuity customer ID. You type in the 5-digit ID, you mark that as done, it's going to suck in all the information. Tip for everybody. How long do you wait after checking that button to know whether it worked or not before pinging me and saying this didn't work?
Immediately, right away.
No, but you get a T-shirt anyway for your bravery. No, like 5 minutes, okay? It could the thing about it is it gives you this illusion that it should be real time. It's not always going to be real time because it has to go from here to Zapier to Salesforce, back to Zapier, back to, like, it's a thing. So it can take up to 5 minutes. Refresh early and often. Who watched my Tuesday tip from this week?
Oh, I've got this.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Homework.
Basically, what I said was, in Process Street, refresh early and often, because sometimes it looks like it's not working, or it looks like something didn't update. And if you refresh it, you're like, oh, yeah, it worked. Okay, cool. So that's just something nice to know. All right, so in the case of client notebooks, the information comes in, and then it goes back and it updates Salesforce and Airtable. And I want to give a shout out to JC, who is my new right-hand man. He's been here about a month-ish.
Yes.
And he's like way better at the automation stuff than I am. So he took a step where you would mark it as done, and then I would, at some point when I got around to it, go through and then update Salesforce and Airtable, then I would uncheck it, blah, blah, blah. He's like, oh no, you check it, and then it does API stuff and like pulls it in, and it's all good. So, so that is an improvement that I'm happy. Thank you, JC. Something else, yes?
So when we go on, there's like that Bible stuff. What does that Bible stuff get done? Is that what you're talking about?
Are you talking about the lightning bolt step here?
Like at the very bottom, like it's like.
Do you see like a stop sign thing? Okay, I need to hide that. So, so the purpose of that is so that people don't archive the workflows and close out the workflows, because the client notebooks are supposed to stay open forever or until the client churns. Yes? Oh, I'm sorry. She said, what do you do, like, when do you mark off that final task, the little stop sign at the bottom? And really what it's there for is people were going in and they were archiving the workflows because everybody's like, Process Street, lots of checkboxes. I have to mark them all done, and then it's still there. Why is it there? And it's because this one stays open forever. And if somebody checks off everything, but not the bottom one, which I thought was hidden, I need to go check that out, then people can't accidentally do that, because there's a required field in there that forces you. Yes? Yes.
It's pulling in from Salesforce.
Yes.
If my clients engage with details and types of businesses and what they're doing totally changes, when I update that, once I click at the bottom, will that update Salesforce?
Yes. Yes, that's the whole point. So, and actually this takes me into my next thing. So in all of the workflows, I've built in breadcrumbs, training, self-service steps. So one of the things that I wanted everybody to be able to do is you get this information and you're like, okay, I was the controller on this like 2 years ago when I did cleanup, but it's actually not mine and it's assigned to me, and that's really annoying. Could you get rid of that? Patti, can you please get rid of that? You can actually make the changes in the client notebook, push the client notebook updated, and it will go update it for you. Yes?
Can you repeat the question for the people
Yes.
online?
Okay, so Elise was asking. She has a new client has a client who has a new, like, has changed their legal entity type from like whatever, from an LLC to a C corp. They have a new EIN. Do you go in here and update it? I think what I would probably do is add notes about the old one somewhere in there, and then just update it to what it actually is now, so that if you ever have to go back, you have it there.
At least my first question would be is, are they a tax client? Because then they need 2 tax returns.
That too.
So if we have some of those specifics, I would say just raise your hand and let's walk through it.
Yeah, no, they're not a tax.
Okay.
That's not a story. Yeah, I just feel said formally known as,
Yep, that's,
EIN in parentheses.
that's what I would do. I would just make a note. Yep. Okay. Okay, so something, yes.
So one of the ones I filled out was a client that was new to me, and it was new to me, and there was an old controller on it. And so the bookkeeper had filled it out completely, probably at 1099 time last year, with the old controller's name in all of the notes saying, she does this, she does that, she does that. So I just wondered if it might not be more effective to not put the name of the controller in there, but just to say the controller, so that you didn't have to change all those every time, because it was like a massive amount of changes that I had to make.
Good tip for everybody in like the field, because there are so many other places where you can actually assign the controller that you don't need to say so-and-so does whatever. It might have been too that it was copied from Teamwork and posted in there, so it just kind of, thank you, got stuck. Okay, so something else in the workflows, all of them that I do, I try to anticipate the questions you're going to ask. So keep an eye out for the red boxes and the yellow boxes and read them. Because like I not infrequently will get questions where they'll screenshot the instructions and say, hey, there's a different controller on this. What should I do? And I'm like, the screenshot that you just gave me, go do that. And you're golden. And they're like, oh, sorry. And I'm like, it's fine. So I'm telling you, the red boxes are most important. The yellow ones are just reminders. But also look for hyperlinks. So if you look in the MEC, this is a screenshot from the MEC accounting deliverables, the client notebook, the client Google folder, you click on those, it's going to take you right to the client notebook, right to your client's Google folder. So I try to make things as easy as possible on you. Okay, so here are some of the processes that we launched over the past year. I'm going to pull out 2 of them and talk about them specifically, just briefly, not like go crazy. Client onboarding. Oh, this is a labor of love for me, okay? Partially because there's so much that we can automate in this. Partially because I've got some team members who are on ops now who used to have things automated, and they were like, when are you building that? When are you building it? Will you please build it? But here's some improvements and some reasons why we did this. One is it forces standardization amongst everybody. It's not one person's onboarding this way and one person's doing it this way and this other one's doing it that way. It also helps people remember the steps. The client onboarding process was about 175 steps, 200 if it's e-commerce or more. That is a lot for anybody to remember. Like, it's just, you know, it's just too much. So we actually have it broken up into 6 different workflows. And how I was saying at the beginning, where the information comes in at the top, goes out at the bottom, for these, it comes in at the top. The bottom is the kickoff to the next workflow. All that information that you entered there, it goes to Salesforce, and it goes into the next workflow. So it keeps going until you get to the end. Along the way, you may see something like this one here, where there are Slack messages that say, hey, the client gave you access to QBO. Here's the link, go review it. It will give you a Slack message that says, hey, they finished. Oh yeah, this is the cool part. The second part of the process is information request. The client gets access to the workflow where it asks them all the questions. It's highly customizable. So it's like, hey, what kind of accounting software do you use? And they say, QBO. And they go, great. here are the instructions for giving us access to QBO. Hey, give us your last 2 tax returns. And it gives them a place to upload it. It says, hey, here is your access to the Google folder. Go throw all your junk that you want to throw in here there, and things like that. So it's collecting information directly from the client, pushing that information into Salesforce so that we are collecting information as we go, so there's no duplicate entry. It's a much better experience for the clients, and it just makes everybody's life easier. The other thing is client onboarding is perfect for automation. So you go through the pre-onboarding workflow, and boom, Slack channels set up for you automatically. Chargeover account is set up automatically for you. They're added to big time automatically for you. Like, it's just like, it's super fun, I think, for the operations team can tell me, but it's so much better to be able to go, did it, did it, did it, did it. And then I can go beat up on all of our partners and say,
Absolutely. Tech
hey,
partners in the room, we could really use some help on automating access.
Tech partners, you know, if we're like reassigning clients, it would be really great if you would give us Zapier access so that we could click a button and it would automatically take care of that stuff for us. But then at the end of the whole process, it spits out a Google Doc that took all of the information that the client entered and populates it into this Google Doc, name, address, EIN, all of these different things, what their current accounting system is, like just, it's multiple pages long. And the link to that is added to Salesforce. And then when we need to reassign something, there's a Slack message that says, hey, here's the client onboarding notes and we need a new controller and blah, 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 blah. So it's pretty elaborate and pretty cool. But the best thing is all the information is coming in standard. We're not skipping steps. We're not missing anything. And nobody has to touch things more than once. Last thing, and I'll do this really fast because I have just eaten up all of her time. Billing improvements. Kenji alluded to this in the first session. We went from like 6.
We went from days on our billing process to hours. So we save about 68 hours a month doing our hourly billing now, and we save 30 hours a year just doing 1099 billing with the automations that we've put in place. So Anne can tell you a little bit more about how that process works if you want to think about what that looks like for your clients, like what that feels like. But it was a huge lift on us internally, and we took the opportunity with Debbie leaving to revamp the process from the beginning.
Yeah. And I think the last thing I want to say about this whole thing is I think people tend to underappreciate the amount of time, like once you have something like this in place, people forget how much time they used to spend pinging 17 people to find out the answer of the minute thing that they needed to figure out at some point, or the amount of time it takes when you send an email to the client and say, I need these 17 pieces of information, and they give you 12, and then you go back and they give you one more, and then you go back and they give you one more. Like, if it's just there and fields are required, like, you just know when it's done. And it's awesome.
So now that we've implemented all this, let's talk about where that left us. So as we mentioned, we launched a ton of processes, right? Lots of them. The biggest one out of the gate was the year-end checklist last year. Full transparency, we made a mess of that, right? Like, we own our mistakes. We'll say it. We launched that too late to be effective for the tax team, and they took a beating because of it. So for this year, for context for our new team members, our tax services are designed to be sold with business accounting services that are delivered on a recurring monthly basis. The tax process, the staffing model we have over there does not work if the majority of the heavy lifting is not done before we hit January. So we're going to make a few changes on the process going into next year. The first being that the year-end checklists are going to be launched in the middle of October this year so that you have 3.5 months to be working on those deliverables. And hopefully we can deliver closed financials and a year-end checklist by January 31st. If we've been doing the bookkeeping all year long, if we've been doing the accounting work, and I tell you what you need to deliver on July January 31st, it should be very doable for you to make that happen. If you see our tax team, they're here. We have 3 or 4 tax team members. Give them a high five. They are in the middle of their crunch season, and they took time to come here to be with you and learn more about what we do. So give them a high five if you see them. Second, Patty's going to make some minor changes that capitalize on the fact that we now have accounting method in the client notebooks. So for all of our clients that are just cash basis, she's going to be able to collapse all that stuff that you don't need for tax reporting, which created a lot of confusion for the bookkeeping team. So you should see that coming, but keep an eye out for those year-end checklists. If you're doing a cleanup on an account, coming in especially in Q4 and Q1, you should see a year-end checklist being launched out of onboarding for you so that you have that deliverable ready for when you do that cleanup. If you don't see it, reach out to your operations manager. But the biggest takeaways for you on the year-end checklist is number one, that for the delivery team, this gives you control, right? I'm going to tell you what you need to deliver in January, and you get to schedule that. You get to plan that in your next few months of when you're going to get that work done within the conversations that you're having with your clients. You know what's coming, and so that gives you control. It also keeps 6 different tax accountants from reaching out to you to ask for different information in January while you're trying to do 1099s. So now you have exactly the plan that needs to be worked. The second is it's supposed to improve communication. One of the things that we had happen last year that I hope we don't have happen again this year is that we put the tax team in a position where they had to protect some of our team members from being thrown under the bus, right? They got a call from the client, why isn't my tax return ready? The answer was because the books aren't ready. And so then they're stuck with like, what do I say to the client? I don't want to throw my team member under the bus. So don't put them in the position of that, right? Communicate with your clients early and often of the trickle-down effect of them not delivering information back to you in a timely manner. Set those expectations early. As with the year-end checklist, we're going to be launching our 1099 process in mid-October of this year. Again, you've done 1099s for your clients. Some of our clients have been with us for years. You've done 1099s every year. Guess what? You're going to do 1099s this year too. Go ahead and have those conversations. You can start checking that vendor data. You can start checking that 1099 data. We're going to be pushing clients to sign up earlier than we ever have before because we need to plan for staffing. Staffing is hard. Staffing is hard right now, and we definitely need that. Go ahead.
For the new members of Acuity that have not done 1099
Yep.
before, is there training available? Or?
Absolutely. So there is training on that 1099 process. And thanks for that great lead-in, because we learned from last year in the number of controllers that we've hired that a lot of our controllers have never been exposed to 1099s before based on their roles. They were in bigger companies. They had people dedicated to 1099s. Hey, guys, thanks for raising your hand on that. Like, I get it. This year, we're going to have bookkeeping support for the controllers who need 1099 support. Bookkeepers will be available. Now, my ask for you is this. If you know that you need that support for your clients, I'm going to ask that you reach out to Sammy and let her know right now so she can plan staffing, right? We've got people available, but we need to know who needs help. This year, we're prioritizing our tax team, which means clients who do not sign up for 1099 services on time are not going to be guaranteed timely filing. And that goes for controllers too. If you come in late and say, hey, I need 1099 support in January, you get to tell your clients that they're not going to be filed on time because we have tax stuff to do. So please make sure that you're communicating early, often. Start the process early. We've got a couple of questions. Ann? Do we have a mic?
Do we have should we develop a Google Sheet or something to inform Sammy rather than all of us just pinging her?
So, fun fact, Sammy is the master of lists. I'll let her know that I just told all of you to contact her, and she'll get something pulled together pretty quick.
One more.
Oh, Matthew, Jane has a question.
Last year, there was a lot of confusion between the controllers and bookkeepers as to who was supposed to gather the information. Has that been cleared up?
I think we're going to push to the fact that if we're not going to split that. We're going to say if you need 1099 support, let's let the bookkeeper do all of your 1099 support so that we don't have a lot of confusion. But that's definitely what we want you to communicate to Sammy, because I get it. For some of you coming from corporate, you've never had the 1099 rollout, and we just threw you into the deep end.
One more?
Oh, sorry.
How are we going to know if our clients have elected to have our 1099 services or not?
The question is, how are we going to know if the clients have elected or not? I can actually make that list available. We're going to, if they signed up last year, unless they actively opt out before December 1st, they're going to have the same service this year.
Yeah, our process is kind of an opt-out instead of an opt-in. So if we did your 1099s last year, we're going to assume that we're doing your 1099s this year. We communicate to the clients and ask them to opt out by a certain date before we start work. And it'll be a short window. So if you're concerned, follow up with your clients.
Is that for new clients, are they asked that up front then if they're coming in at the start or fourth quarter?
Yeah, the new clients will actually have to opt in on that. So if we've not done them before the first year, we want them to actually opt in. And the reason that happens is because many of our clients are, the only 1099s they do are contractors. They're virtual, and they're getting that done through Gusto or ADP or some other system.
But that is a great question because I think I need to add that to the client onboarding workflow.
Yeah.
Good job.
Rebecca? Yeah, I would say that the bookkeeper and controller coordinate to that. I would ask that probably both of you reach out to make sure that the messaging gets there. There will be an email going out. So the question really was, who's the primary communicator on 1099s, that's messaging? I would say bookkeepers, you're the ones that are typically doing 1099s, so you reach out first. But controllers, if you're on that account, I want you following up if your client has not elected 1099s and you feel like this is a missing piece of their accounting puzzle. All right, so month-end accounting deliverables. So how you can help us. We need you to complete the month-end accounting deliverables workflow monthly. So we've kept it short and sweet to the most important questions that we need answers to propel other processes forward, right? That's the big focus. Did you run Verify IQ? When did you deliver the financials so that we know that we're meeting the deliverables that we were billing for? How did you deliver them? And a couple of questions about how you feel about your clients. So we have two soft questions, right? Completely subjective. How happy are you with this client? And how happy do you think this client is with us? Both are completely subjective, but they're very insightful because no one survey tells you about your client relationship. NPS doesn't give you the full story. A single survey on 1 month can be a bad month versus a good month. It can be a change in staffing. So fill those out each month. But for the surveys and the workflows that have been completed already, 93% of the responses say that you think our clients like or love us, which is really encouraging news. So a lot of time when we have noisy clients, it's because they're misaligned with services or they have bad expectations. So knowing how you perceive your relationship allows us to intervene quicker. The second question is the most important one to me, right? Because I'm about my people, right? Matthew's about the clients first. I'm about the people first. How happy are you with this client?
Objection.
Objection. Shut his mic off. But how happy are you with the client? So our model works best when you all have well-balanced book of businesses, right? Everybody gets a cranky client. It happens. We deal with it. We learn to live with it. But if you have an entire book of cranky clients or ones that are stressing you, it's demoralizing. And that's not what we want. We want everybody to be happy, right? It's in the core values. We want you to be happy here. So our goal is to monitor that and successfully rebalance it so you can be successful. Have a book of business that you enjoy and that you can successfully manage. The reality is sometimes it's the luck of the draw off the new client, as new clients come in. We go through the onboarding process. We scope projects. Big projects all of a sudden turn out to be really small projects and vice versa, right? We just got to rebalance. We got to work through it. We are here to work through that with you. We don't ever want anybody to have a terrible book of business. So this gives us insight into that. So please answer those questions. Big takeaway, you really like 88% of your clients. which is amazing. That's exciting stuff. So let's talk about the client notebooks. This is the central repository of all the information about your clients, right? It answers all the questions that you've been asking, especially for you new people coming in. Who's on my account? What services do they have? Who's responsible for the tax return? Where do I find information? Where is the Google folder? It's all there in the notebooks. And the notebook has the integration, the zaps and all that kind of stuff as well, so that you can keep that information refreshed and that kind of thing. So I've heard the objection of, gosh, this isn't part of the billable service. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Updating the documentation in the notebooks is a valuable part of our service, and it's what our clients count on us for, right? Matthew mentioned it earlier, 100,000 competitors, 90,000 of them are teeny tiny, right? Part of our value proposition is that we're bigger, right? Somebody falls out, there's another person that can backfill, and we do that most successfully when we have our documentation in place. And we've had situations, some of you in this room have taken a client where you're like, what in the heck just happened here? I get it. I'm sorry. This is how we're going to solve that, right? In the client notebooks and investing in that. So let's talk about what the ask is for you. I want you to incorporate this into your monthly review process, both on the bookkeeping and the controller side. I think at most, it's a 10 to 15 minute review, right? If you truly know your clients, if you look at the checklist, it's going to jog your memory. You're going to be like, oh, yep, that's new. Guess what? My pre-revenue client now has deferred revenue. You know, we now have prepaid expense. I booked it in there. These are small clients. There's not that much activity on some of them, right? So looking at the checklist on a regular basis will definitely jog your memory and add to it. And over the course of a year, you're going to have a living document that's very robust that you've chipped away at a little bit at a time. The other thing the notebook does is it covers you for when you want to go on vacations. You should be able to unplug. That's what we're built about, right? You should be able to unplug and know that somebody's got your back, and I want to have your back. I need to know what's going on with your client, right? So that's how that works. The other thing is the notebooks are being leveraged by the operations team for their processes, and it's being used by the QC team for their processes. And if your notebook is up to date, you're going to see some of that information flow through into your year-end checklist, so you don't have to add it again. So take the minute to invest in that process. On the month-end accounting deliverables workflow, we have 2 tasks assigned to each of the bookkeepers and controllers to review your notebooks intentionally 2 times a year, right? Really take some time to make sure they're nice and complete. That's been May and June before the summer vacation season, and we've asked you to do it in September and October before the holidays kick in. Simple ask just to make sure that before you go out for those times, if you want to take vacation, help the people helping you. As you think about this process, resist the urge to procrastinate, right? And say, oh, I don't have people cover for me. You will one day. You may not expect it, but you will. And so I would ask that you just invest a little bit in this process so that we can cover for you effectively. Last thing on this before we move off client notebooks, in the coming months, the quality control team is going to be expanding their scope a little bit to start checking that we have balance sheet schedules and reconciliations for where we have balance sheet accounts, and that we have notebooks completed. So go ahead and start working towards this process so that if you get a call from the QA team saying, hey, I see this on your balance sheet, I don't see a schedule anywhere on the Google Drive, you'll know where that's coming from. So let's talk about Verify IQ. We are up to 88% adoption, so give yourself a round of applause for that. And I appreciate everybody's effort in embracing Verify IQ. So we're asking you to run Verify IQ each month for month-end close so that we can improve the quality of our work product. And it's working, right? We've seen that time and time again, that awareness leads to increased quality. Mistakes happen, right? I've done it. Everybody's done it. You don't click save because you get a phone call, or you book an entry and it hits the top level account instead of the sub account, or it goes in backwards. Like, raise your hand if that's not happened to you. Right? So Verify IQ catches all that before it goes to the reviewer or before it goes to the client. It's just a quick and easy way to sweep the floor, make sure everything's nice and tidy. With Verify IQ, we're also starting to identify training opportunities, right? With so many new people in this room, in our company, somebody's always learning. Somebody's always learning how to use the software. They're always learning how to use our processes. Verify IQ is going to help us identify those training areas so we can focus on process and technology training. The last piece is Verify IQ has just recently launched an API. It's super exciting, but we are actually going to be able to download detailed transaction volume data that is going to allow us to monitor pricing and automatically increase bookkeeping prices and fixed prices, or the foundation of building that. It's not tomorrow. We've got to build the process. But we will be able to automate price increases without someone having to submit a ticket to say, hey, I think my client is out of scope. So bookkeepers, like, raise your hand. Like, that should be a big thing for you of not having to monitor your scope, not feeling responsible for monitoring your scope manually. We're going to be able to automate that through Verify IQ. The second piece that is even more exciting to me is that with the Verify IQ API, we're going to be able to pull in trailing 12-month revenue and expenses for each of our clients into Salesforce, and we can start reporting on that. Now, some of you are like, okay, that's no big deal. It is a very big deal because you can't get that data without going into every single client we have and running a trailing 12-month income statement and a balance sheet and all of that kind of stuff to get that information. So what does this give us in the big picture? Paired with vertical, this allows us to start building communities inside of Acuity where we can have roundtables and discussions to support certain industries and really build on the training and coaching around our team, right? Some of you have stepped up and taken clients outside of your expertise and your industry level, and kudos to you. Like, you deserve some applause for that. Taking a risk, I appreciate it. Thank you for stepping up and learning something new. But it's scary, right? It's scary sometimes, and you need some support, and this helps us pair you with people who have like clients, right? These industries and these companies in the same industry, in the same life cycle, have the same tech stack, and they have the same accounting problems. So you can solve them once, and you can spread your knowledge and help each other. I'm really encouraged about the conversations that I've been hearing that are happening in the performance evaluations. I've been talking with Sammy and Taylor. Many of you have stepped up and offered to mentor. You've offered to join into the tech stack. That is super encouraging, and that's the foundation of these communities that we're talking about, right? We need people to be digging in deeper to specific technologies, being subject matter experts on those, and being that way because you have a client who's gone through that problem. I mean, one of the biggest ones that we have here right now is SaaS Optics, right? We have lots of questions about SaaS Optics. I'm very excited to see them here, right? We're going to get some questions answered. We're going to raise our hand and say, hey, we need some support and work together. So, for most of you, the biggest push is complete. We've launched our workflows that you're going to see. The delivery team, it's the year-end checklist, it's the 1099s, it's the accounting deliverables, the notebooks, right? Ops team, you got more coming, I'm sure. But for most of you in this room, the biggest push is done. Thanks to everybody who participated in the process, right? If you gave feedback, you asked questions, you beta tested for us, Jolie, Brianna, thank you. Your fingerprints are on these processes. Your feedback matters. So thank you for participating and raising your hand and being open about that. We aren't walking in circles at Acuity. We are on a spiral staircase. And we have reached the point now, from this visual, it's really great, that you can look down and you can see the progress that we've made, and it's really, really exciting to see that. But step by step and turn by turn, we're going to keep growing. We're going to keep improving because that's what we're meant to do here. If we stop, we're bored. So we're going to lay the foundation for what comes next. So with that, I'm going to open it up for questions and see if we have any others in the group. Brianna.
Thanks, Matthew. Okay, on the monthly end checklist, is there a way to add, and I'm sorry if it's already there and I missed it, so when we have a controller on it and we pass it over to them, we don't have the questions. Do we love this client? Do we like this client? We only have those on the bookkeeping ones only. Can we add that? Or is there a reason that it's not there? I was just curious.
I think that's really easy to add.
Okay.
I don't do the work, but I'm going to say it is.
I mean, it's not the hardest
Yeah,
thing
that's
I've
real
done.
simple. That's why I said, that's easy. We'll get that
Yeah.
done. It'll be done by the end of the day.
Will you send me an email or a Slack or something
Yeah.
reminding me?
Sharon's got a question, I think.
Patti, when you were talking about that Google Doc, that's the onboarding kind of summary, does that live somewhere that the controllers can access, so when they get a new client and they have all these questions going through their head, they can just refer to that?
Yes. It lives in Salesforce. It will be there are a lot of things actually that are in Salesforce that haven't quite made it over the client notebook yet because I was working on the client onboarding process. So it's coming. But in the meantime, the ops team should be giving you that link when they hand off stuff.
So playing off of that question, where are you at in the cleanup and onboarding process? Does it like go to cleanup and then kind of stop till cleanup's done and then go to an onboarding process? Would that be fair to say? Like,
So it goes pre-onboarding, information request, so that's from the client, then implementation, which is basically like, or no, set up workflows. I'm mixing them up. It might be set up workflows, like what kind of tools do they have, and kick off the appropriate workflows for each of those, like Bill.com setup and different things. Implementation is when they say whether there's cleanup involved or not, then cleanup, then launch success.
Sandy,
So it's
is the crux
part
of your
of-
question, am I going to have a notebook when I get to clean up?
yeah, because I
You
have,
will have a
that's where I
notebook
thought
when
you
you
were
get
gonna-
to clean up.
So one of the great things about the new onboarding process is that your notebooks will come pre-populated with information that we've gathered directly from the client and through the onboarding process. All of that will be pre-populated in your notebooks, ready for you when you take the client for cleanup. And then you can just add the new things that you learn along the way.
okay.
Yeah.
The other question, which isn't a follow-up, on one of my clients at least, we don't deliver financials because they never give us the information, so we only deliver them quarterly, even though they're monthly clients. Can we get another line in the thing that says not delivering now or other or something else? Because
Don't we already have
kinda,
another?
you might have other in there, but
Let's look at that and see. I will say each of the tasks on the accounting deliverables workflow, right, it asks, did you deliver this stuff? Each of those boxes, at the very bottom there's one that says, is there anything else that I need to know, right? And I would just encourage you maybe to put a note on there, and if you're not delivering, say, not delivering or delivering 2 months at a time because the client was unresponsive. You know, I don't want you to think that the month-end accounting workflow is punitive. It's not punitive, it's communication, right? And so if somebody hasn't delivered financials on the 15th because they don't have the information, but they deliver great financials on the 16th, let's just deliver them on the 16th. Like, don't stress because you haven't delivered them on the 15th because you didn't have the information, just communicate.
And then I would say on Verify Q, where you see that, like this is like, the client won't respond because the bank feeds are down. That happened to nobody, right? There's like a end of the month point. Hit submit, put it in the notes, hit submit. QC knows. And that's one of the, if you don't submit, we don't know the gravity of that situation to be able to put resources on it. If you put the note and do submit, David's actually going back right now for the last 3 months and finding the themes. And then we're going to strategize, how do we support you? So like the processes matter because you're telling us stuff when you go through them. They're like all designed to try to figure out how we best do the next step to support you better. So if that's helpful, that's been one of the things with Verify Q adoption that I think they've done a great job communicating is like, just put it in there, bank feed, still not connected, person won't respond to me, submit, score 26. We're like, I know which ones they are. This is the guy with the 26. It's not like, oh, yeah, that's a terrible bookkeeper. No, that's a terrible client.
Right. Go ahead, Beth. Oh, Ron, Matthew?
Actually, while we're waiting for that, I lost my T-shirt giver. So there are some extras. If you asked a question, you want your T-shirt, run to the... There's a desk over there, and we've got some extras. So, go ahead.
So this kind of piggybacks off the Verify IQ and may be specific more to the e-commerce practice. So when we implemented that, it was kind of like last step. Everything has to be done before we run that. And I think that's kind of how the e-commerce team still looks at that. But it sounds like maybe we should update our process to run it, include the notes, so you guys can also see what's happening on the e-commerce side. But we've always like, don't run it until we have everything. And so sometimes it's being run a month later, maybe, you know, whatever the scenario is. So I'm just curious about what you guys would like to see as far as that goes.
Matthew, what did you tell David?
I say by the 25th, like if it's not out, like just wherever it is on the 25th, just hit submit. 25th is kind of my, between the 25th and the 30th is my like, just record it, do it. And then when you can rerun it when you send it, if it's helpful, right? It's also a communication tool. But do put a note, like freaking international inventory, still not in from Amazon channel. Like the more descriptive you are, like it will help. We're like, oh, that's common across 17 things. And we'll design something as soon as we figure it out. We're really running tight on time.
I know.
What? We had two over here. Oh.
Hey, so I have a particular client that has in the notebook, it reflects the 25th of the month. Under the month-end checklist, also reflects the 25th. But the deadlines for the bookkeeping month-end checklist and the controller reflects the 15th. I'm having to manually go in. Okay.
That is a great reminder. Everybody, go check out the Tuesday tips, especially if it relates to Process Street, Client Notebooks, MEC. I have done a lot of them. In this case, there is no way for us in Process Street to go, this is a monthly client who also, like, the logic doesn't work. So you need to change those manually. It's really easy to do. In the Tuesday tips, I show you how to do it.
Yeah.
So just change it to something that makes sense to you.
Okay.
You can just do it for the whole year and you're done.
Okay, perfect. I'll do that. And then my second question, when I'm working on a cleanup and I get it ready, you know, I like to go in and do the checklist for the last month before it transfers over to a bookkeeper. But if it's a bookkeeper assigned as well as a controller, should I go ahead and complete the month-end checklist for the bookkeeper? Because I don't like that red past due thing.
Yeah.
The completionists of the group.
Yes. I want you at the end of the day to deliver financials. So if that makes you happy, check it off, man. Check it off. I know Melissa had a question and we're tight on time. I want to address one thing on the standardized products because we slid right past this. So we launched standardized products this year as well. That was on the list. We have standard SKUs, which means monthly bookkeeping means monthly bookkeeping, and weekly bookkeeping means weekly bookkeeping. So if you do have an early close, we should have an early close product on our opportunity in Salesforce, which is triggering that early close messaging. So if you're not seeing that in your notebooks, tag us in that so we can go back and clean up that data in Salesforce. We've done that for years where we just said, sure, we'll give you an early close, and we don't actually have it in a separate product. And so we've got a lot of knowledge that's in people's heads that we need to get back into Salesforce related to those. Any other questions? I know Melissa had one, and I know we're tight on time, so I can stop by Melissa and chat.
Kind of over time. So.
And regarding CFOs, are we going to be diving into this more on Monday?
Yes,
and
we
how we're
are.
getting more
So I
involved
forgot
in
to
the
say, so
process?
CFOs in the room, you should have gotten a Process Street invitation. It uses your Google credentials. So if you're not sure, go out and log in. I'll put the link out on the Slack channel for you, Melissa. Monday, I will be in the CFO team meeting to actually show you a notebook and the month-end accounting deliverables so that you have access to that and you can absolutely have anything that you want in there. So perfect. Well, guys, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Keep digging in on these workflows. We really appreciate all your efforts.